this webinar sponsored by Success and Bright Learning. Now, for the entirety of this webinar, we'll be sharing some resources with you. In fact, the slides are already posted in the Google Drive that you can access in tinyurl.com/Java webinar resources. And hoping that we can also share with you the sample codes are already being shared pala sa Google Drive. It's already up there, and those sample codes will be explaining them later in our webinar for today. Okay, so for a quick survey, we would just like to check out some of your expectations. Let's see, no? Let's see the result. Okay, new concepts. All right, according to your inputs, expect to learn more. Topic on streams. Okay. We might not be able to discuss the advanced topic on streams because this will be a very long discussion and we only have an hour and a half for the entire webinar. But later on, I'll share you some um, uh, ways on how to learn about streams. Advanced features, definitely we'll talk about advanced features. Lambda, we have some examples for that. Design conventions, so anything about streams, we might not be able to cover that. And informative and fun concepts, exciting concepts, sure. We'll have those later. Okay, so if you have already encoded this, just try to refresh the screen or your browser, and you will see that a new word cloud will be launched, will be seen. Okay, let's go back. Okay, just to reiterate that this session is a recorded session. If you're uncomfortable being recorded, please drop out of this session. Okay, now for today's webinar, we would like to focus mainly on two main topics. One, the technology path for aspiring Java developers. So this covers students. This also covers, let's say, professionals using a different programming language, or perhaps you're a non-IT professional who would like to dive into IT, into programming or software development, then this webinar is for you. Now, the other side of the coin is, well, most of the participants that I've seen, the names that I've seen in this webinar, were my former students in some learning institutions, which I will mention later. And these selected features from Java 8 to Java 14, some of them have not been really introduced in the learning institutions that I've been connected with. Okay, so what I intend to do is to fill up the gap between the learnings that you already have in traditional Java, okay, and then the newer features from Java 8 all the way up to 14. And then we will also tackle some of the licensing changes, licensing agreements that has been introduced last year, April 2019. Now, probably if you have an instructor in a university or an institution, he will always say Java is for free. Well, not anymore. Okay, so there's already a new licensing agreement that was introduced in Java, and we will touch that later. And then, of course, we will also ask everybody to, if you have any questions, no, maybe point of clarifications, or maybe if you have any questions that was not discussed, please feel free to throw them in the chat window. Sir Edwin will be monitoring the chat window, and he will be keeping track of the questions that you would like to ask. All right,
Actually, Sir Lawrence,
go
all
ahead.
questions, probably we could answer that one after the webinar proper itself.
Let's see if the question is uh, relevant in the slide. Maybe we could address that immediately. But if
Oh,
that's
all right.
there are some questions that can be answered on on the latter part, on the
All
last
right.
few minutes, we could also do that. All right,
Good.
that's good. Okay, now let's talk about the term Java full stack developer. So when we talk about full stack development, uh, it's a way, it's a discipline that you code all the layers of the application. So if probably you've heard of what we call the front end, the back end, and the middleware. So Java can be used to create a full stack application. Okay, so you have core Java, which is the main uh, language, technology language that most beginners use. And then when they shift to J2EE or to Java Enterprise Edition, it means they are ready to create a web-based application. Now, sometimes in a web-based application, you'll also need to know a little bit of HTML, a little bit of CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript. Now, for those who are new in IT, JavaScript is very much different from Java. Okay? So Java is a product of Sun Microsystems, while JavaScript is a product of Netscape. Okay, the original name of JavaScript is LiveScript. So please try not to confuse these two different technologies. And then, of course, you can have an SQL database. Now, SQL is commonly known as a back-end data storage. So that's the reason why it's called data storage. You know, whenever you sign up on a certain page, whenever you like something in Twitter, whenever you like something in Facebook, whenever you post something, those data that you post in your social media site will land eventually in a database somewhere in the cloud. That database can be an Oracle database, it can be a MySQL database, it can be Postgre. So there's a lot of databases that is available in the market. So when we talk about full stack development, you can have core Java, you can have J2EE, okay? You can have the front end technologies like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All right. So in order for you to gain what we call a full stack developer status, you need to be familiar with the minimum of all of these technologies. Okay, so before we move forward, and in order for us to fully grasp what front end is, maybe you could visit this URL, and then we will pause this video for about 30 minutes just to give you enough time to watch this short YouTube video. Sir Edwin, can you shoot the link in the chat window so that they could just click it? Or let me.
For a while.
Okay, so there's the link.
Okay.
Austin, thank you. Please
Thank
click
you,
on that link
Austin.
and then let's watch it individually and then I'll continue in after 3 minutes. Okay, I guess the video's already finished by this time. All right. So when we say HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, these are technologies, web technologies that takes care of the front end. Okay. Now Java and other databases are technologies that takes care of the back end. Now, it depends on what technology we're talking about. If we're talking about web technologies or web applications, Java can also be treated as a middleware. So you can have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that will take care of the front end. Then you have Java that takes care of the servlets, and servlets are actually Java codes that contains HTML inside. Now, these servlets can talk to databases, which is your backend. Now, Java can also be treated as a back-end technology if you're talking about mobile applications. So a mobile application, you have XML as the front end, and you have Java or Kotlin for Android operating environments or Android devices. Okay, so to answer the question, is Java really a full stack development tool? Yeah, well, the answers are yes, no, and well, it's actually it depends. Like what I've said in the previous slide, Java is can be a full stack development tool if you're using a desktop application or if you're trying to develop a desktop application. A desktop application is a program that runs on top of your operating system. Now, this is where Java is so popular because you can create an application in Java that can run in any operating environment, whether you're using Mac, whether you're using Linux, or whether you're using Windows. So as far as a desktop application is concerned, you have both the front end, the middleware, and the back end. Now, you might ask the question, is Java considered also as a database? Because in the previous slide, we said that databases are considered as backend. Now, in Java version 6, they introduced a database management system called Derby, also known as Java DB. So once you've downloaded your JDK, you already have Java Derby bundled in it. But Derby is not equipped to handle a very large set of records. It's only used for testing, mostly for software development, but for actual production, it's not really built for that. You might as well shift to MySQL or Oracle or probably Postgre. Okay, but for web development, you also have JavaFX and JSP to take care of the front end. So it's really up to you what type of user interface you would like to accomplish. So if you have a training for JavaFX or if you have a training for JSP, that can also be used for your front end development. Of course, you have a lot of other supporting technologies like HTML. You cannot create a web application without HTML. HTML is always mandatory, just like in the video that you've just seen, right? And the middleware can be your servlet, and then of course the backend can be your databases. For mobile apps, you only have two layers there. You only have the front end, which is your XML, and you also have your back end, which is um, either Java or Kotlin for Android. All right. I'd just like to get a feel of the attendees that we have in this webinar. Um, could you please answer this short survey again? I removed the password. You should be able to dive in directly to that survey. Oh, thank you, Austin, for providing the link. You could check out the chat window for the links. And let's see. Okay, let's check out so that I'll have an idea. So we have students. Oh, we have game testers. We have freelancers here. Okay, feel free to type in your current job title and then click on refresh. Oh, we have programmers attending. Okay, so working students. So we also have students. Huh. Are these students from the university that where I'm teaching? So if you're from UST, say hi in the chat. Okay. So we have a few, let's see. We have DBAs. Oh, we have faculty members. Oh, I think these are my students. Richmond, Matthew, oh, Alex. Okay. Abigail, Paul, Therese, John, Rodrigo. Okay. So hello to my students, and I see a lot of familiar names who have been my former trainees in some academic institutions. Okay. All right. Let's go back to our slide. Okay, so we have a lot, oh, sorry. We have a lot of students on board. Okay. Now, for the students, what is the ideal career path in Java? Okay, so first, we need to be trained in core Java. Core Java is always the starting point. Now, if you have the financial capability and you have the correct skill set, the next logical step is to be certified, if you may. All right. You might want to aim for, initially, you aim for OCPJA. Okay. That's the associate level, Oracle Certified Java Associate. And then you aim for the next level, OCPJP, Oracle Certified Java Professional. All right. But of course, even if you're a student, you don't need to have an academic degree in order for you to get certifications in IT. Okay? So even if you're a student, you can take these certification exams. Of course, nothing will beat the real life experience. So an experience in the actual development world is always a plus. Now, after being trained in core Java, and hopefully you already have experience, you can now get a training in Java EE. Java EE is in Enterprise, or Java Enterprise Edition is the one that we use in creating web-based applications. Now, just like to clarify this, no? A web page is different from a web app. A web page is something that you see on your browser. A web app does something from the web browser to the middleware down to the database. So there's an entire set of stuff. That's why we would like to highlight the term full stack. Okay, so you are considered as a full stack web developer if you can develop the front end, the user interface, the things that you see on the web page, and these are the things that you see on your browser, which are your web pages. And then after accepting some user inputs on the web page, it will now be thrown, it will now be redirected to the middleware. That is where your servlet comes in. And then sometimes they can be saved into a certain data storage, which is your database. Now, the training for Java EE um, is really exciting because the time that you will pour in will always commensurate with the earnings that you can get. All right. So this is where the money is at. It's not enough that you only know core Java. It's always better if you know Java EE. Because after getting trained in Java EE, it's now time for you to get actual development experience. There's a lot of websites out there that offers free training. And there's also the paid ones. Okay, so whenever you train yourself, whether online or face-to-face or synchronous or asynchronous, the important thing is you need to get the needed skill set in order for you to do actual development work. Some of our attendees right now are freelancers, and I'm sure before they become successful freelancers, they also had training. Now, they might have some face-to-face training or probably an online training. The important thing is they need to get the needed skill set in order for them to satisfy the need of the client. Of course, a plus factor is getting certified in the technology that you're using. Now, in the Philippines, as we all know, we have board examinations. And before you take these board examinations, you need to be a graduate of a certain degree. The nice thing about IT in general, we don't need to be a college graduate before you get certified. So in any path in IT, whether in your database path, whether you're in the networking path, whether in your in the software development path, um, getting certified in the technology that you're using is always a plus. Now, after you're already familiar with core and the web technologies, maybe it's now time for you to touch the database part as well, so that you can now consider yourself to be a full stack developer. So the aim here is for you to earn money, whether you're a student or whether you're a professional. Okay? By being a full stack developer, that can help you get clients if you're a freelancer, or if you want to be an employee, that can help you land in a good company or a decent company who pays well. Okay? Now, after being a full stack developer, maybe it's time for you to study some web architecture or even network infrastructure. Now, if you're already familiar with networking, that's a plus factor. If you're already familiar with IT and security, that's also a plus factor. It will help you become an enterprise architect. An enterprise architect are it's a profession, it's a title that we give to developers who can mandate, who can set up from the planning stage all the way up to the development stage, all the way up to the deployment stage, even the testing, and all the way back to the entire cycle. So if the client is satisfied with what he sees, there will always come a time that an upgrade or an update will be needed. So you can go back to the entire waterfall model. Now, this is always an advice that I give to my professional students. In between each step, teach. The more you teach, the better you become, the more knowledge you gain. So if you're training to become a core Java programmer, maybe you can help out a colleague teach Java. If you want to take the certification exam and you're studying for the certification exam, try to teach a colleague, and probably you're helping your colleague and yourself study in the certification exam. And if you're already ready to take the exam and you've passed the exam, it's about time for you to migrate or to learn an additional technology, which is Java EE, and then so on and so forth. Okay. The bottom line here is everything that you get, everything that you learn, you need to share it in order for your um, skill set to be more concrete. Okay. So my advice is you need to start somewhere. So if you're a professional who's already good in one technology, maybe it's better if you have a better set of arsenal, uh, a big set of arsenal, so that you can provide the services needed by your company or by your client. Now, if you're not into Java technology, maybe it's time for you to shift, or to not really shift, but to start learning core Java. So where do we start? We start with Java SE. Now, you might have some confusion with the terms. Java SE is actually core Java. All right. Now, where do you need to start? You need to start learning. Now, because of the pandemic that we have, most of us are working from home, learning from home, and studying from home. Okay, learning a new technology can also be done at home. So we can do asynchronous or synchronous learning. Okay, so these are my top 3 suggestions for each one. Okay, so for those who would like to learn um, web technology or web page designing, there's a web development course, and you can see the web development course link here. Okay, let's click it. It you will be redirected to a Facebook page by Success and Bright Learning. So in this um, webinar that will happen this coming June 12th, you will learn the steps needed in designing and developing websites, okay? Graphic design basics. Okay, actually this is not just the basics, but this webinar will help you learn how to create a responsive web page. Okay, so when we talk about responsive web pages, these are web pages that can be seen, that can be viewed in different types of uh, monitors. So if you have a laptop, you can view a certain page in your laptop. The same page, you can also view that in your mobile device, in your iPod, in your tablets, or even on your cell phones. So if you're letting your phone in landscape or in portrait, okay, so vertically or horizontally, you can view the same page without any loss of information. So that's what we meant by responsive web pages. In order for you to uh, grasp how to use a responsive web page, these three technologies, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you need to know at least the basics. And then you will use a framework called Bootstrap for that. Now, Bootstrap is not the only framework that's out there to achieve um, responsive web pages. There's also other platforms. So I think Edwin is the one who will deliver this course. We'll also talk about some other platforms. Now, the fun thing or the nice thing about this webinar is most of the softwares that you'll be using are all free. Okay, so there's no need for you to buy any licenses. All right. So, and then another suggestion in order for you to achieve a synchronous way of learning is to take an online or a face-to-face set of courses. I think there are some of the attendees in this webinar who were my former trainees in these institutions. So we have a learning institution in Green Hills. If you're in the area of San Juan or Green Hills, Active Learning is the nearest learning institution for you. They offer Monday to Friday courses, not just in Java, but in other open source technologies like Python, like they also have CompTIA, they also have ITIL training, and even Agile training. But of course, I'm one of their trainers in the Java technology. Now, if you're in the area of Makati or in the southern part of Manila, Metro Manila, you can also take courses under Phoenix One or Mapua. These two training institutions are both located in Makati. Okay, both Active Learning and Phoenix One offers trainings from Monday to Friday, while Mapua offers Java training every Saturdays. Okay, so these are your options if you wanted to have a face-to-face Java courses. Now, I think Active Learning is offering an online training course, and it's still, since it's online, well, you can take it at home. You don't need to go to Green Hills or in Connecticut. And another option is for you to get a personal tutor. There's this marketplace that I go to. It's Upwork. I'm a consultant in Upwork. I'm one of the I also do trainings and personal tutoring in Upwork and in other uh, platforms. And yeah, you can also get a personal tutor if you're into synchronous training. Now, when we talk about synchronous, meaning your teacher is there with you live. So it's a real-time exchange of experience. So the teacher will throw out or will teach you the technology that you have enrolled in, and then the student can ask question. The nice thing about synchronous is whenever you ask a question, immediately you're going to get a response. Okay? But of course, with the pandemic that we're having, sometimes um, some learners, they don't have a good internet experience, so they're limited with the technology that they have. Okay, so another way to achieve learning is for you to take it asynchronously, meaning you get to learn at your own time. But there's a mandatory thing. Okay, so in order for you to achieve learning asynchronously, self-discipline is important. Okay, because the learning is now on the shoulders of the learner. Because whenever you go to a school, you have no choice but to learn, because you're inside an environment, or you're inside a learning environment where everything is intended for learning. But you're this time, if you're taking up asynchronous learning, chances are you're taking this at home. And sometimes if you're at home and if you have kids, the kids will probably say, hey dad, I need you to cook me dinner, I need you to cook me breakfast. Dad, I would like to get a glass of water. Well, I'm speaking for my experience. Okay, so there's a lot of distraction from the kids, from loved ones, from the wife. Okay, so there's a lot of distraction. So the thing is, if you aim for asynchronous learning, you need to find a time for you to learn. And of course, there's also the issue of bandwidth sharing. So not everybody is, or will give you the time and the bandwidth to do your learning. So chances are some of your kids will also have um, online classes that they need to share bandwidths with you. Okay, but the advantage, again, it is self-paced. Now, these are some of the learning institutions that I recommend. Okay, now SVHS is a company in California that, let's take a look at this. I've created two courses for Silicon Valley High School. These are, where are those courses? Here. These are Intro to Programming Java Part 1 and to Programming Java Part 2. Okay, so these two courses, I was the one who created this, but there's a certain amount that you need to pay for. So there's a certain amount in dollars. Okay. Now, the nice thing about this learning institution is it's asynchronous, all right? And once you've paid for the course, you don't have any deadline. You can take it for a week, you can take it for a month, you can take it for a year, all right? The course is for you to finish anytime. And if you're residing in the eastern part of the United States, um, it has a high school credit. So there are some schools in the US, once you finish this course, you can be given credits. All right. Now, also an advantage is this course is intended for high schoolers, which means it's easy for you to understand. Okay, I've already had several students who have enrolled here in the area of California, in the US. So they've already finished two courses from me. All right, and this is delivered asynchronously. Now, earlier I was mentioning about tutors. There's another tutoring service. Oh, okay. Let me show you the list of um, our team, our people in Silicon Valley. So these are the team members that we have, and I'm one of the Filipinos who's working. Oh, where am I? I think they've removed me. Oh, there. Ito. Okay. So here, I'm one of the Filipinos who's working with Silicon Valley High School. And recently, another Filipina joined the ranks, and she's a customer service representative. Okay. So there. And another way is sometimes reading a lot of materials can be tedious, especially for our millennials. Our millennials, our younger students, would rather watch a video than read a lot of materials online. So if you're the type of person who would like to read, then it's all right to get an ebook. But if you're the type of person who would like to watch a learning video instead, you can also enroll in several courses, let's say in Coursera, in Skillshare, or in Udemy. Right now, I'm I'm trying to finish one project from a company called Learning While Practicing, or LWP. So, can you please visit this URL, tinyurl.com LWP courses, so that you'll have an idea what is the push of LWP, or Learning While Practicing. This is about this video is under 3 minutes. Okay, and I will continue the discussion after 3 minutes. Okay, thank you, Austin, for the link. You can check out the chat group. Austin has posted the link for the YouTube video from Learning While Practicing. Okay, okay, so we'll continue in 3 minutes. Are we done with the videos? Okay, thank you, Rod. All right. So I hope you were able to finish listening to the video. If not, we can go back to that later. The links that that you see in the slides, you can always go back to them later, because I've asked my friend Joe to put it up in YouTube. So Joe is a French guy who owns the company Learning While Practicing. As you can see in the video, he has already posted um, some of his videos in Udemy, in Skillshare, and even in Coursera. Now, come this September, we will be releasing a course in all three brands, Coursera, Udemy, and Skillshare, for Java developers. The course will focus on introduction to Java all the way up to database programming, including database encryption. So I'm currently finishing up the learning materials, and it will be posted, or it will be published, hoping I can finish them by August so that it can be posted in Skillshare, Coursera, and Udemy come this September. Now, this is one of my personal favorite, Free Code Camp. Freecodecamp.org is a free learning um, site where you can also get training for front end, specifically responsive web page design. Okay, so again, it's up to you if you want to do it asynchronously or synchronously. So there are a lot of options in order for you to start learning Java. All right. Okay. Now, when we talk about Java technology, one of the normal things that we we've been hearing in seminars and trainings is Java is 100% free. Now, you might need to recheck the licensing agreement. Okay? So if you're using Java 7 that was released in July 2001, the support is extended until July 2020. Okay, so Java 7 is still 100% free. So there's no need for you to worry about paying a certain amount if you're using Java 7. But Java version 8 is a different story. Okay? Java version 8, they have a certain agreement, or they posted an agreement. Whenever you download Java 8, it's already a paid JDK. But if you're in connected with a learning institution, you're connected in a school, in a training company, or your purpose is just to create Java-based application for learning, that is considered free. But if you intend to create um, a paid application using Java 8 onwards, there's a certain amount that you need to pay. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's $2.50 per month per user per desktop. Okay, so that's $2.50. In Philippine peso, that's about 125 pesos. Okay, roughly. Okay, so is there a totally free version of Java? Yes, there is, and we call that OpenJDK. So if you don't want to pay for the JDK that you're using, and you wanted to use the latest JDK, don't get it from uh, the JDK download screen. I suggest you get it from OpenJDK link so that you can get the free version of JDK, even JDK 14. Now, in the previous versions of Java, they usually follow the life cycle. We call them LTS, long-term cycle. Okay, long-term software cycle. So these releases, the LTS, they normally last from 2 years up to 5 years, the LTS. Starting Java 9, they started releasing certain versions of Java that will only last for 6 months. So Java 9, Java 10, they are non-LTS, meaning they follow the STS, short-term software release. So Java 9 and Java 10, they have support for 6 months only. So after Java 9 and Java 10, Java 11 follows the LTS release, meaning Java 11 will be there for the next 3 up to 5 years. In fact, according to this website, Java 11 will have a premier support until 2023 for 5 years, and it can be extended for another 3 years. For Java 12 all the way up to 14, they follow the they follow the STS, or the 6 months release. All right. So currently, the latest version right now that we have in the market is Java 14. Now, Java 15 is set to be released this coming September 2020. So every 6 months, they've been releasing a new version of Java. All right? Okay. So since there are so many versions, it won't hurt if you'll know some of the language features that each version has to offer. Okay. So I've given, or I would like to discuss the second part right now. The second part will now focus on the Java developers who's already listening in this webinar. And in the next couple of slides, we will discuss the language features from Java 8, selected, okay? Just like to highlight the term, the operative word here is selected. Selected language features from Java 8 all the way up to Java 14, okay? So let's start off with one of my favorite, the default interface method. Okay, let me just open. Hold on, let me open my my slide, my sample codes. Right. Okay. So what is a default method? Now, traditionally, when we talk about interfaces, okay, we say public interface I. Traditionally, we only put methods, public methods inside an interface. Let's say method 1. And these methods are all abstract methods. So if you say public, abstract, void, method 2, okay, these two methods are in a way identical. Interfaces are there to provide a way to force the implementing classes these methods so that they can override these methods. Because since these methods are all abstract, they need to override them every time they implement an interface. Also, we know that interfaces in Java are also intended to practice multiple inheritance, to simulate the need or to provide the need for multiple inheritance. But what if you have an implementing class? Okay, so for example, we have a class here. Okay, let's make this non-public. All right, let's say I have a class. Public class, my class implements interface I. So we're supposed to provide the implementation of these methods, right? So if you are my former student, you should know this. All right, so you have some codes here, some codes here. All right. Now, let's say this application has been launched in the production and it has been used for months or for years already. Then all of a sudden, a new copy of the interface was introduced. Let's say the software architect said, hey, we need to add another method in the interface. So let's try to add another method right here. Public void, do stuff. All right, semicolon. Now, if we try to update the interface, then it will definitely break your implementing class. Why? Because in your interface, you've added another abstract method, and your implementing classes, your running class, does not have the newly implemented or the newly added method. So if you don't have the copy, the source code of this implementing class, then that class or the bytecode that was generated by this class will cause a runtime error because you've updated your interface. So that can be a problem. So in the old version of Java, having an interface has what we call the scalability issue. When we talk about scalability, it's the capability of your application to update and add new features during its lifetime. So if you start adding additional methods right here every time, let's say you think of something else, if you think of a new feature, you will always end up breaking all the implementing classes. So if you have 100 class implementing this interface, and if you try to change this interface, if you try to add a new set of methods, that will definitely break all the implementing classes. So there's the problem there. That's the reason why in Java 8, they introduced what we call default methods. Okay? So default method can be, is the answer for adding an updated way of, to address the issue on scalability on interfaces. So you just need to have the keyword default. All right. Now, question is this method a mandatory method? Now, notice that your regular interface method still doesn't have any implementation. Default methods, on the other hand, can have an implementation body. It has a method body. But of course, you need to put the keyword default. So starting Java 8, default is not just used for switch cases. It can also be used for methods in an interface. Now, what does it do? So if you start adding a default interface, and let's say you don't have this in your implementing class, this is perfectly fine. Okay? This is acceptable. So let's try that. Let's save that one. Okay, let's, hold on. Let me go to my folder, Java 8. All right. So if I type, okay, let me just save this one. Save Java C default interface dot Java. Okay, so we got a successful compilation. Notice in the implementing class, I've only overridden the say hi method. So if this is the additional method that that the software architect or the developer added, the implementing class doesn't have to be updated. All right. So if you call my default greeting, this one, the implementation will now be provided by the interface. So Java default interface. Okay. So this is say hi right here. All right. And this is also the call to the default, my default greeting, which was provided in the interface. And this is the implementation. Okay. Now, just like any other methods in your interfaces, methods in an interface are intended to be overridden. So if you want to override that default interface, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so save, compile, and then you can also call the implementation of the default interface by calling my interface dot super dot method name. So here we go. So this is the greeting from the default interface, and this is the message that we've gotten from the overriding method. All right. Now, aside from default interfaces, another new feature that we have are static interface methods. Okay. Now, a static interface is also a method that has an implementation. Now, in the old versions of Java, in version 7 up to the earlier version, let's remember that methods in an interface should not have any implementing body. It must end with a semicolon. So if you want to have a method that has an implementation inside the interface, you need to declare that method as a static method. All right, so that's now allowed in Java 8. If you have Java 7, okay, for example, my current Java compiler is version 8. If we try to compile this, minus source 1.7, and then let's use static interface.java, if I compile it using version 7, I will definitely get a compilation error here in line 3. And line 3, this is line 3. That's the error right there, because Java 7 until the earlier version doesn't recognize methods that have implementing body inside them. So all methods inside an interface should not have any implementation except from version 8 onwards. So if you want to have a method implementation for your interfaces, you need to be sure to declare them static. All right? Another feature is what we call the functional interfaces. Now, this is not really a new feature per se, but the annotation functional interfaces was introduced in Java 8. Now, let's define what functional interfaces are. Okay, if you visit the API, for example, in the event, AWT event package, all right, there are a lot of interfaces right here. For example, action listener. In the interface action listener, if you scroll down, you will see that there's only one method inside that interface. Therefore, action listener can be considered as a functional interface. A functional interface is a type of interface that has only one functionality or one method inside them. So when you implement these interfaces, you just need to override one method. Another example is, let's say, item listener. An item listener has only one method. You have item state change. Therefore, item listener is a functional interface. But for the rest, let's say text listener. Okay, for text listener, it's also a functional interface because it only has one method. How about mouse listener? For mouse listener, you have several methods inside this interface. Then mouse listener is not a functional interface. Okay? So one of the commonly used functional interface is the runnable interface. The runnable interface is the one that we implement if we want to create a thread, right? And you only have one method there, public void run. Now, so since these are functional interfaces, so what now? What's the purpose of these functional interfaces? Functional interfaces can now be used for, or can be used for lambda operation. Okay, lambda operator is a new operator introduced in Java 8. Okay, let me show you an example for lambda. Okay. All right, so before lambda, this is how we create a class. Okay, so lambda expressions, it follows this specific syntax. So you have the parameter, which is optional. You have the lambda operator. Lambda operator is designated by the dash or the arrow. We call this the arrow operator, the dash greater than symbol. And then you can now implement the code body right here. Now, functional interfaces are used to, or the at functional interface annotation can be used for interfaces that has only one method inside. Now, what's the advantage? You don't need to declare a new class that implements this interface. In the traditional way, if you have this interface, you still need to create a public class that implements the interface greeter. But with the lambda operator, we can now immediately call or instantiate an object or call the method say hello and provide its implementation. All right, so we have the method say hello, which came from the interface greeter. Now, if you look closely, say hello right here does not have any implementing body. So where will I get the implementing body of this method? Right here. This is your method implementation for the method say hello. Using the lambda operation, if you only have a single statement that you want to run, it's all right to provide the lambda operation for that. But if you have multiple statements, it's better to put them inside a pair of curly braces. All right. Now, I've also provided other examples of lambda that you can download from our link with parameters. So you can have a functional interface that has parameters, and you can use lambda for them. No? And these are the list of statements that I can call using the lambda operation. All right. So much. We have exhausted so much time for version 8. Let's try to speed up a little. Let's go to version 9 and version 10. Now, version 9, like what I've mentioned, follows the LTS. Oh, it's a non-LTS release, meaning Java 9 is already, it's not supported anymore. So we have Java 11 and Java 14. Okay, so these were the language features or selected language features that was introduced in Java 9 and Java 10, which can also be found in the latest version of Java, which is 14. So this is one of my personal favorite, the REPL. Okay, if you've heard of REPL in Python, okay, it's the same idea. In Python, you have idle. So Java 9 also released the REPL. Okay, we call it JShell. REPL stands for read, evaluate, print, loop. So let's say, okay, allow me to shift to, so currently I'm using Java 8, all right? Allow me to shift to Java 14. I have 2 JDKs installed on my machine. So just to confirm, my JDK now is Java 14. Okay, allow me to go to the folder of Java 14 and let me run JShell. Now, JShell is considered as a new tool that is very useful because if you wanted to test a sample code, you don't have to write an entire Java source code. Let's say there's a mathematical expression that you would like to test. Let's say you have int a equals to 10, and then let's say b equals to 3, and then you said, what will be the output if I do this? A divided by b. Will I be getting 3.3333? Will I be getting 3.0? Will I be getting 3? So you're not sure if you're going to get this or this. So instead of typing a new Java source code from ground up, test.java, and then you have public static void main string args, and then you type these 2 statements, you can immediately do that under JShell. So you just need to type JShell, and this is the REPL version. So you can now type in int a is equal to 10, comma b is equal to 3 directly without creating a Java source code. And then you can type system.out.println, and then you can type a/b, and then you will get 3. Oh, why didn't I get 3.0? Because if you have an integer and you divide it by another integer, you will definitely get an integer result. All right. So far, so good. So what if I wanted to display the value 3.333? You can say double, and then you can test it here. So there you go. So the nice thing about JShell is you don't have to write an entire Java source code just to test a specific code snippet. Okay? Now, another feature that started with Java 9, this is also one of my favorite, are the Java modules, also known as modules. Modules is a way for us to provide an additional set of accessibility. So in Java 1 up to Java 8, we have 4 access modifiers. Well, 3 actually. You have public, protected, and private. If you don't use public, protected, or private, you're using the default access modifier, or also known as the package-friendly access modifier. starting Java 9, we can create certain packages. And those packages, you don't have to declare all of those packages as public, because some packages are meant to be used by a certain package only, and it's not intended to be used by the entire Java community. So the problem with Java 1 to 8, when you declare something as public, it's public to all. What if I wanted to declare a set of classes inside the package that is public only for friendly packages? Then we can create modules. Modules provides us a way to still have the private access modifier, the package friendly or the default access modifier. We can still use protected access modifier, but having a public access modifier can now be divided into several types. You can have public only within the module. You can also have public but only to friend modules, or of course the default one, the type of public access modifier that we've been using from Java 1 to 8, which is public to everybody. Okay, so if you want to have further access control to your classes and to your packages, you can use modules for that. All right. Now, another feature that was introduced in Java 10 are what we call the immutable list, okay, or the immutable collection. So if you have, okay, hold on, let me see. Yep, here. Let's try to open this one. Okay. In the good old Java 8 version, all right, whenever we create a data structure, let's say a set, a list, or a map, we know that these are all mutable collection. When you say mutable, you can add any objects to them as long as they satisfy the declared generic type. So I can add, I can create a collection, an array list, and then I can add several objects. So this is an example of a mutable list. But in Java 9, there's what we call an immutable list. An immutable list is a type of collection that is immutable, meaning you cannot add anything, any other object after you have finalized your list, your set, or your map. For example, here's an example of an immutable list. You have list of, and then you've added 3 strings, uno, dos, and tres. If you try to add another string inside it, okay, since, let me just double check, SBL, this is J9, all right. So I'm using Java 14. Okay, if we compile this, okay, list of, I will get an error, a runtime error. Okay, let's try to run that one. Java list of. Okay, it says here unsupported operation exception. And it happened in line 14. Where is line 14? This is line 14 right here. Okay, we're getting a runtime exception because we're trying to add a new string in an immutable list. So before in Java 8, when we talk about set, list, and map, all of them are mutable. Now in Java 9 onwards, you already have a set of immutable list. So let me just comment this out so that you can try it out later. All right. And for those Java newbies, this is a nice upgrade in the Java documentation API. Okay, so this is one of the things that I teach my students. Whenever you code in Java, you always need to always need to have a copy of the Java documentation API. All right, so we go to oracle.com/Java SE/docs, and then here's the API. This is the API online version of Java 8 API. Now, if you will look at the API documentation starting version 10. I'm not sure if 9 is still around. All right, 9 is still around. Okay, you will see that there's already a search button on the upper right part of the API documentation. So if you want to learn more about, let's say string buffer, all right, just key in string buffer and you will see, okay, the different hits for string buffer. Okay, so you can go directly to string buffer. So you already have the search button for Java 9 API documentation onwards. All right, and of course, this is a nice feature that is introduced in Java 10. I think in Java 10, this is called the var keyword. Now, var keyword was introduced. It talks about local variable type inference. Now, I know it's a mouthful. Local variable type inference. It means that when you declare a variable in Java, okay, we normally do it this way. On the left-hand side, you have the data type. On the right-hand side, you have the value of the variable that you're trying to assign. Starting Java 10, you can now use this. Var I equals to 10. All right? Now, some of you might ask, does it mean that Java is not a strict language anymore? Compare Java and Python. Java is strict. It's a strict programming language. If you declare something as an int, you're only allowed to declare or to assign integer values to that variable. Okay? Unlike Python, you can declare a variable and then you can assign any values to that variable. And then during at runtime, the data type of that variable will be built and it will adopt the type of value that you're trying to assign to it. Now, the concept of var is only limited within the method. Okay? Within the method. Declaring, okay, that's the reason why we call it local variable type inference. Local means it needs to be done inside a method. So if you do this, var string s equal, var my string equals Lawrence. All right. This will cause a compilation error because you're trying to assign it in the class level or outside the method. So this is not allowed. All right. The var keyword can only be used for methods inside. So if another reason why it's called local variable type inference, because it's the data type of this variable is being inferred based on the value that you have on the right-hand side. So if this is a whole number, then remember in Java, you have 4 integral data types. You have the byte short int, all right, and also long. It will now, the variable I will now be declared as an int because that's the default data type for a whole number value. But if we say var int, let's say 1.0, then I will be a double value. So the data type of I will depend on the value that you have on the right-hand side. Same thing is true with this one, var strings equal to Lawrence. Now this one is okay because it's done within the method. Now str will now take the form, it will now infer, it will now take the form of the object that you're trying to pass to it. Okay, so you're not just limited to primitive types. You can also do that for reference data types. You can also do that for collections. All right, even for exception. So you can either do it this way or this way. Now, I think you can see that this one, comparing these 2 lines of code, the second one is shorter compared with the first one. All right, so var is a new keyword for Java 10, which talks about or which allows us to have what we call local variable type inference. All right, now we're pressed for time. Let's jump to Java 11. Now, for Java 11, this is one of my personal favorites, running Java file with a single Java command. Okay, now let's take a look at this sample code right here. Let me see if I have. Okay, let's have this. All right. Now, you see, I haven't really compiled var example. So if we take a look at the contents, I don't have a dot class. Now, starting Java 11, okay, we can directly run that one. Java var example.java, and there we go. Okay, so it can immediately run. Unfortunately, there's no output because we haven't displayed any output. Let's try this one. No, it has an output message. Okay, let's delete the class files. Okay, so you'll notice we only have .java files. So before, what we do is we compile it first, and then after compiling, we run. Starting Java 11 onwards, you can now immediately type Java and then the name of the file. There's no need for you to perform the compilation first and then running it using the Java command. All right? So that's one of my favorite features in Java 11, running a Java source code without compilation. So these are some features that, makes Java and Python similar, starting to be similar with Python. All right? Another set of features are the updates for the string method, additional string methods. In strings, before you have .trim. .trim will allow you to take away the white spaces on the left and on the right side of the string. That can still be done using strip. Okay, trim and strip are almost identical, but strip has different variations. You can call strip leading or strip tailing. So if you just want to delete the white spaces in front, you say strip leading. If you just want to delete the white spaces on the last part of the string, you can use strip tailing. And then there's an additional method called isBlank that will check if a character is a space or is a blank. And then they have introduced another method called repeat. All right. Now for Java 12, 13, and 14, there have been additional features for the switch cases. So if you've been using Java or C in the past, this might interest you. Oh, it's already 3:30, but since we started, I guess 15 minutes late, maybe we could extend for a little bit more. Okay. In the good old days, when we do switch case, we do it this way, right? So we have a method, main, and then we have a variable called year, and then we're going to check if the year is divisible by 4. If it's divisible by 4, the number of days for February will be 29, otherwise it will be 28. Okay? Let's say the month that we have is January. January has 31 days. So these are the months that has 31 days in them. You have January, March, May, July, August, October, and December. The rest, you only have 30 days. But for February, the number of days for February will depend on the value of Feb number of days. It will depend on the assigned year. Okay? So instead of having this very long switch case, starting Java 11, you can now have it this way. This looks like the lambda operator. So you can identify all the months, and all of these months will now have this value, 31. These months will now have this value, 30. And then for February, you only have this. So compare this version in the old version of Java, which has a series of cases. You can now limit the number of cases to just 3 cases. All right? That's one new feature in Java 11 to 14. Okay. Next, we can also do it this way. Let's say in the good old version, you have a system.out.println that will print if the values matches any of this. So again, you have 12 cases right here. You can minimize that to just 3 cases. So you can have multiple cases or multiple case constants in a single case. Okay? Here's another version. You can now put the switch case inside a system that out that print ln. All right? So this is quite a new feature for Java 13. Okay, so in Java 13, you can now put a switch case inside a println method. So depending on the value of num right here, it will print the corresponding string inside the system out println. Okay, all right. Aside from the switch cases, all right, another new feature, this is also one of my favorites in Java 13, the string block. For those who have experience in writing servlets, this might be helpful to you. Okay, in Java, you only have a pair of single quotes or double quotes. Starting Java 13, you can now have what we call the triple quotes. This is what we call the text block. This is a text block. This is equivalent to this one. So a text block will allow you to write a series of text values, and it will automatically insert the next line characters in between. This is very helpful, especially if you have an out.println statement for servlets. This can also be helpful for those cases. Now, having this text block and string 1 and string 2, if you compare these two, they're actually the same. All right? Okay. Now, another feature is what we call the instance of. Okay, so let me open this. So I have an example of a hierarchy. You have the superclass, abstract class, animal. The subclasses are bird and mammal. And then this is our test class. Okay? In our test class, we use the instance of operation to test if the value of the argument is an instance of a specific class. Let's say if we try to pass dog, if you try to pass dog right here, okay, in animal A, and you wanted to call the unique method, you need to check if A is a mammal type, and then you provide the cast. And then that's the time that you call the method inside the class mammal. Now, starting Java 14, this is a newer way to perform instance of testing. Notice that we can now test the type of object that was passed to A and then immediately assigning a cast. So if A is an instance of mammal, it can now perform an automatic cast during testing. Okay, so this is a new feature for Java 14. All right. And lastly, we have what we call text blocks. Okay. Oh, sorry, we've done text blocks already. Okay, this is records. Okay. Now, do you still remember final classes? Okay, so final classes is, it has been around for quite some time already. And you have public final class int x and int y. You have, you can have a constructor. Okay, you can have the equals method, you can have the hash code method, and the toString. Now, this very long class point right here can now be rewritten using record, using this single line. So record is another keyword in Java 14 that allows you to create a final class that has a constructor that also has the implementation of the 3 imported methods from the object class, like equals, hash code, and toString. So whether you're using the long version, this one, final class point, or just record, you can use the same test class for that. All right. So those are the selected language features that I've personally chosen from versions 8 to 14. Of course, there's a lot. There are other language features for collections, for streams, for NIO. Okay, but due to lack of time, I cannot discuss all of them. All right. So, kamusta naman kayo? How are you guys? Okay, so for this final survey, uh, Austin, can you do the honors, posting the link on the chat, or Sir Edwin? This time, based on the topics that we've seen so far, I would like to ask, what's your favorite topic? Okay, so let's try to click this. Okay, I would like to know the favorite topic of. Oops, did I use a different link? Let's see. Okay. Yep, J Shell is also one of my favorite. I agree. Okay. How about you guys? What's your favorite topic? Please key in your favorite topic in this link that was posted in the chat. It was posted by Austin. Thank you, Austin. And then key in your favorite topic, favorite language feature perhaps, or perhaps the list of webinars, instances. Okay. J Shell, I see a lot of J Shell. Shorter switch case, me too. Instance of, yep, same here. Okay, so there's a lot of new topics. Okay, this is one of the problems that I see in Java. Imagine every 6 months, a new language feature will be introduced. Okay, that's quite an overload. But here's the takeaway: you don't really need to memorize all of them. All right, these language features are there as a supplement in the core language feature of Java that was introduced from Java 1 to 8. Knowing Java 8 is enough. All right, you don't really have to study the language feature of 9 to 14 because these are just convenient features. All right. Okay, so last few slides. Okay, so if you have any questions, now is a good time for us to ask them around. You have any questions, guys?
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Lawrence. All right,
Right, thank you,
guys, this is the
Edwin.
time for you to ask questions. Just write on the, you can just type in your chat box, and then let's see how Sir Lawrence can answer your question.
Wag lang tungkol sa pera at sa love life, ha? Anything about Java, I'm willing to answer.
Okay, may nag-comment dito kanina pa
you need
si
to forgive
Austin.
me.
Raming
Yeah. Thank you,
natutunan.
Austin.
Initial is best feature. How do you change Java version on the fly?
Okay. Now, thank you for that. It was asked by Austin. All right. For my former students, remember during our first lesson, okay? During our first lesson on the first day, I always remind you to use 3 environment variables. If you're installing it in Windows, I ask you to use class path, and Java home. Okay. Now the key here is Java home. All right. So you just need to change the Java home for uh, for your current terminal window. Okay. Currently, if you see echo Java home, my Java home right now is JDK 14. So if in Windows, you can create a batch file. All right. In my case, I created an environment variable. I have 2 variables. I have J8 and J14. If I wish to switch to Java 8, I'll just type J8. And then my Java home, echo Java underscore home. My Java home right now is version 8. One of the one of the bad practices in installing Java in your machine is hard coding the path with the actual location of your JDK. That's bad, because you won't have the flexibility that I'm enjoying right now. So if you see, if I check my compiler, I'm using Java 8. If I want to switch to Java 14, I'll just type J14, and my compiler now is now Java 14. It's like a batch file, and it switches the value of the Java home. All right.
Wow, thank you very much, Sir Lawrence. I remember that one, environment variables changing that in my Windows environment. Very nice.
Very important, very important.
Yeah, very important. Same principle. Any more, guys? This is the time.
Okay, maybe we could take 2 more questions before
Yeah, 2 more
we end.
questions, guys, before we end the webinar. Go ahead. Any more?
Any other questions?
It seems that you have presented your Java webinar so clearly. That's the reason why a lot of people right now are not, I mean, probably they understand it so much.
Or probably tulog na.
Yeah, that's another thing.
I know it's quite a handful. No? Hearing somebody talk for an hour and a half can always put you into snooze. That's why you notice from time to time I ask you to open a video. I ask you
correct. That is correct.
some surveys, so that there's always we can always cut the very long silence on your end, and you can, you know, do some interaction with the speaker or with the teacher.
Yeah, okay? That's right. That's right. You did great, really. Okay. Next question. Okay. Another question here. Okay. What is the advantage of Java over Python?
I think that's from Cow, right? Zijan is one of my tutees. Okay. And I think he's a Python developer. Now, the advantage of Java over Python is mainly on setting the learning standard. Okay, in learning, okay, for some of you, you know that my undergraduate is in computer science, but my master's degree and my currently I'm taking up my doctoral degree in education. In teaching, it's always best to invest on the introduction part. It's like getting the best best learning, best teaching on whenever you start in your primary, in your grade 1, grade 2, your elementary days, and then as you go up the education ladder, it's all right to have a little bit of leniency because the discipline has been built on the earlier days. In learning programming, building the discipline is the same. Okay, facing the facts. Python will have, Python is easier for beginners. That's a fact. Java, on the other hand, has a steeper learning curve. It's harder to learn Java, core Java itself, compared with core Python, because there's a lot of leniency on the Python end. So the advantage of Java is it provides the learning discipline like C or C++. And then once you already have the learning discipline, it's easy to migrate from Java to any other programming language. For example, my background is in C. When I started in C in college, and then I noticed C++, it only took me a day to learn C++. And then from C++ learning Java, it took me a week, right? So I've been using Java ever since I think September 2001. So uh, close to 19 years. I've been using Java for the past 19 years. Um, so if there's a new programming language, I remember when my wife is enrolled in her master's degree, master's in information technology, she has a subject called web technologies. And I was the one who wrote the curriculum for that specific subject. And one of the subject that was the one of the programming language that was used for that subject is Groovy. It took me 3 days to literally master Groovy because my background is in Java. So most programming languages background will, or most of the programming languages now, learning these new programming languages will be easier if you have the right background. So it's easy for me to learn Python. It's easy for me to learn Groovy because I have Java as the background. So
It's
for me,
true.
the advantage is the discipline. Python, on the other hand, it has its own set of advantages. Like for most data science and machine learning capabilities, Python is used because for Java, for each data type, you have your byte, short, int, long, float, double, char, and Boolean, except for Boolean, of course. All primitive data types, they have a minimum and maximum value. For Python, there's no maximum. Oh, well, there is. The maximum value of a certain data type will depend on the free memory space that you have. So in Java, if you create a loop that will, let's say you have 100 raised to 100th power, you might end up having a negative value, a wraparound value. You might not be able to get the actual correct value for that. You might need to use the number class for that. For Python, if you have a big RAM, you would probably get a value, the correct value for, let's say you have 100 times 100, you can get a value for that. So there's an advantage for Python, there's an advantage for Java. Learning different programming languages will be very helpful, yes. And it depends on the culture, it depends on the need. Let's say you wanted to go to mobile development and you're focused to Android development. Right now, the leading programming languages for iOS is Swift. For Android, the leading programming language is Kotlin and Java. For older Android mobile operating system, you have Java, just Java. For example, if you still have Gingerbread or Jelly Bean, you don't have no choice but to use Java. But if you have Oreo, you can use Kotlin or Java as the back end. So there's one advantage. Okay. I hope
Thank you
I was
so
able
much,
to.
Sir Lawrence.
Welcome. Okay.
There's one comment here. Wala na
Mhm.
pong matanong. That means they are very satisfied with your presentation.
All
And
right.
then that is from Rodrigo Gabriel. And then
Thank you,
from
Rod.
Edmer Moriente. This is Edmer Moriente. He said, well presented po lahat, sir. Thank you. Very nice. Thank you so much, Edmer.
All right.
Okay, that's another question.
Sige po. Which Java
Josephine
version should
Amante.
you use? Okay. I see the chat. Tama ba ito?
Okay. Which version
Kay,
of Java would be best for beginners?
all right. Thank you for that, Miss Josephine. No? If you are learning Java, okay, this is always the tip that I give for all of my students. In learning Java, it's always best to choose the latest version. The latest version right now is version 14. Now, you don't really need to learn the language features from Java 9 to 14 because it will depend on how will you use it. The most important language features are the ones presented in Java 8. For the JDK version, I always encourage my student to install the latest version, always. Okay? Now, it won't hurt if you will start learning the new features for 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and probably this September 15. In fact, the the JDK that I'm using for learning while practicing, in one of the video that you saw earlier, is version 8. For the JDK that I use for Silicon Valley High School is Java 13. So it will be, how should I say it? It will be very tiring if you always update your JDK to a new JDK version every 6 months. So I suggest now you install Java 14 and then study the language features of Java until Java 8. If your brain cells can still handle it, then you can also take a look at the new language features for Java 14. Now, the downside on software development, though, is, let's say there's a project. Your boss told you, hey, I need you to do, let's say, an online reservation system. The follow-up question is, which is the best Java version to use? If it's a paid application, then I suggest you use OpenJDK. All right, so you don't have to pay for anything. But if it's a paid application and you are forced to use the commercial version of Java, well, maybe it's best to use Java 7, because Java 7 is 100% free until today, until 2022. So for learning, version 8 is okay. Better to install Java 14. Okay, I hope I was able to answer that, Miss Josephine.
Thank you
Okay,
so much, Sir
mhm.
Lawrence. There's another question here from
All right.
Paul John Martin. Maybe this will be the last question we're going to entertain.
Okay.
In Java 8 interface has default in Java 8 interface has default interface where the abstract method can have implementation. Now my question is, when we use, when are we going to use interface in
Interface.
abstract?
Very good question. That's the same question that I asked when I saw this feature.
All
Actually,
right.
Paul, um, it seems that you already know what abstract classes are and what interfaces are. So the question, this is a very good question, you know. Now, what's the difference between an interface and an abstract class? Now, here's the answer. Interfaces can now be used to implement multiple inheritance.
All right.
Abstract classes will still force you to use single inheritance. Okay? Now, which one is better? Of course, for scalability purposes, it's always best to use interfaces. Now, using interfaces in the past, before version 8, the limitation there is scalability, because like what I've mentioned earlier, if you introduce a new method in your interface, all the implementing classes will be broken, will now have an error. So the default interface is the answer for that scalability issue. So if you're in a crossroad in your software development task, am I going to use an abstract class or am I going to use an interface? My suggestion is always go for interfaces, because you don't have to worry about breaking up the scalability of your application, because right now, starting version 8, you already have a default interface to address that issue. All right, Paul?
All right. Guys, thank you so much for logging in, and then we really appreciate your attendance today. And by the way, if you want to see all the upcoming webinars of our Success in Bright Learning, I already uh, input in your chat box our link, that one. Oh, by the way, you have a final thought, Lawrence.
Just last two slides. Okay. After the Q&A, this is my final thoughts. No? In learning, we need to start somewhere. You need to start where you are, whether you're in school, whether you're in the office, or right now we're at home. We need to start wherever we are physically and mentally. Whatever technology that is provided for us, we need to make use of that. If you don't have an internet connection, grab a book. If you do have an internet connection and you're unable to do asynchronous face-to-face learning, and you enroll yourself with an online class that accommodates an asynchronous way of learning. So we need to do what we can. And then let's keep on moving forward. We cannot be stuck with the same technology for the next 10 years. Okay? Like Alvin Tolfer said, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be the people who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And with that, I'd like to thank you and God bless us all. And remember, please do wash your hands. Also, if you want to get a copy of this webinar um, uh, presentation, you can get it from this URL, also the sample codes. Now, the videos will be posted. Sir Edwin, just like to confirm, it will be posted in YouTube, right?
Yeah. We're going to post it
Okay.
on our YouTube account in Success and Bright Learning.
All right. So the YouTube link, I think, will be, we will also provide that YouTube link in the Google page 24 hours from now, after we have downloaded the video from Zoom, and then
Yeah,
we will post it to YouTube, and then Edwin will be sending it to you so that you can play it back. So
that's
the
right.
session that we're having right now is called a synchronous version for those who have an intermittent internet connection, like I think Miss Mylene is having one. Special mention, hi Ma'am Mylene. Don't worry, your request will be granted. We will give you the video link. All right?
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Actually, we have gathered, at least in our registration right now, I saw that it is already 116. So that means not everybody were allowed to join this session. So most probably after we have downloaded the recorded video, we're going to send anyway to all those people who registered online. You don't need
Great.
to worry.
So this is a free video. By the way, you have my email address there. You also have my Skype ID there. In
That's
case you
correct.
wanted to get in touch with us, feel
Yeah.
free to reach out and we'll help you out. You can ask us any question as far as these questions are Java based, and I'll try my best to answer them. All right?
All right. All
Okay.
right, guys.
Turning
Thank
over
you
to you,
so
Sir
much.
Edwin. You can
Yes,
have the
yes.
floor.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sir Lawrence. It was an awesome presentation. Kudos to you. Okay, guys, you can leave the webinar now. Again, thank you so much for coming. See you soon to our next and succeeding webinars in the future. God bless, guys. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Austin, thank you so much. You've been a big help.